Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, and innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Ryan Levesque, CEO and creator of the Ask Method company, a pioneer in quiz, funnel marketing, and digital strategy who turned contrarian thinking into a movement for entrepreneurs worldwide. Ryan, great to see you, and welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
Epi, I've been looking forward to our conversation, and it's great to be here.
Fantastic. Ryan, let's rewind to your early days first, before best-selling books and getting the award of Inc. 5000. What personal experiences or challenges pushed you toward entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for me, I would call it a quarter life crisis in my 20s when, after graduating from university, I spent time working on Wall Street in finance, and then had an opportunity to move to Asia and live and work in China in finance in what was really my dream career. And I'd achieved everything professionally that I thought I wanted to achieve. And I kind of looked at my future ahead of me and sort of had this moment of, wait, this is it? I feel like there's a fire inside of me. And if I don't do something about it today, now that this fire is going to go out. And this was around 2008 in the global financial crisis. And the company that I was working for at the time was American International Group, or AIG. And when I walked into my office one day and I grabbed the Wall Street Journal Asia edition, the headline read, AIG to file for bankruptcy. And I took that sign as my signal from the universe to do what I'd been itching to do up until that point, which was to start my own business, start my own company. So that day, I literally drafted my resignation letter, signed it, walked into my boss's office and told him that I was going to be moving on and going on my grand adventure. And that was the start of what became a 2-decade experience now, building multiple companies and having a little bit of fun along the way.
Amazing. Now, when you started building your first ventures, did you have any idea that something like the S method would become a framework used by many people across the world?
Epi, not at all. So my someday maybe dream when I started my first business was I wanted to make $10,000 a month and be in a location independent business. Meaning my wife and I, we could travel the world and be wherever, and just wanted to make $10,000 in passive income with an online digital business. So at the time I was based in Shanghai when I quit my job. My wife was in grad school. She was pursuing a PhD at Hong Kong University in Hong Kong. We had this crazy bi-country marriage for the first few years that we were married. We've been married 19 years now. And we'd see each other on the weekends. And eventually, when I decided to leave my career, we moved into student housing together in Hong Kong, and eventually moved to a tiny little island that you may remember from your time in Hong Kong called Ma Wan, which is an island that you can only get to by ferry, basically. And that's it. So we're in this tiny little apartment. And the first business I started was inspired by my wife. And it was a business that was selling tutorials, teaching people how to make jewelry using Scrabble tiles and origami paper. The most random, the most obscure business that you can imagine. But that business in its first month made a few $1,000s. Then I kept growing it, and grew that business to almost $10,000 a month. And as quickly as it took off, it totally crashed. Because what I realized was that this whole Scrabble tile jewelry thing was just a fad. It was just a silly fad, and it had taken off and then sort of disappeared overnight. But I learned some lessons about starting a business, testing the appetite of a market, figuring out where there's already pre-existing demand. We tapped into a website that was brand new at the time. It's a big company today, Etsy.com. It was a startup at the time. And I was blown away that Etsy.com would give you the sales results of any product on the platform. So you could go to a seller's listings and you could see how many sales they were making in a given day, how much revenue they're making, and you could basically reverse engineer how much money they're making in their business. So it just became a simple fact of trying to find a product that was selling well on that platform and build a better mousetrap. And so I did that in the Scrabble jewelry market, and then pursued the orchid care market and the memory improvement market. And I went to about 24 different markets. And along the way, learned about the power of using surveys and quizzes and assessments to really understand what the market is looking for at a deep emotional level, finding out what people want and giving it to them. So it's through that experience that ultimately led to writing my first book, Ask, building a company, the Ask Method company, a 7-time Inc. 5000 company, building a technology platform, Buckets, to basically enable all of that. And eventually selling our company in 2024 to allow me the space to pursue what you kind of hinted at the beginning of our conversation, this next season of life.
Yeah, that's amazing. So with S Method company, it has evolved into more than just marketing systems. It's kind of like full scale ecosystem. May I say that?
Sure. Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah. Now, how did you know when it was that time to scale it beyond the software and training?
Well, I would say this. When I turned 30 years old, I decided to write a book. And I wrote a book with the intent of it being a better business card. I wanted something that I could give out to people when I was trying to explain about what our company did and what I was doing at the time. And when I launched this book, Ask, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, at the time of this conversation, the book became the #1 best-selling book in the country. All categories, ahead of Malcolm Gladwell's book. I think he launched David and Goliath the same week that we had launched Ask. And the book became a phenomenon. Magazine rated it their #1 marketing book of the year. And I never expected that to happen. Like, that wasn't my intent. I poured my heart and soul into it, but you just never know how these things are going to, take off. And it was on the back of that book that I realized that there was a bigger opportunity here to build a company. If I take a step back before that, when I was in these kind of weird niche markets, Scrabble tile jewelry, orchid care, et cetera, I was on all these different niche markets. I started connecting with other businesses that were kind of getting interested in the work that I was doing and basically asking me if there's any way I could partner with them or work with them in some way, shape, or form. And I did with a handful of businesses. And one of the businesses was in the golf market, the golf instruction market. And we built an assessment in that market that over 10 million golfers have taken. And on the back of that assessment and the funnel that we built and the data that we acquired as part of that project, we were able to sell the company for 9 figures to NBC Golf, to the Golf Channel. Then we did I did something similar in the business funding market. And we built an assessment to figure out what type of business funding is right for your business. And we coined this loan builder. And when we built this platform out, that led to an acquisition by PayPal for about $180 million for that business. So it was the success in the golf market, the success in the business market, the success in the 20 plus small niches that I had pursued myself, the success of the book that kind of led me to realize that there's something here, that this is something that I need to sort of pour my heart and soul into. And that kind of led to I guess I would say a decade of putting the blinders on and being in empire building mode, focusing on like that inch wide, mile deep, this one idea, building it into the industry standard framework and, building training and consulting and technology all around this one very specific idea. So I'm a big proponent when businesses find something that the market really resonates with to go very, very deep as opposed to trying to come up with, the next big idea. I think most businesses don't go deep enough in that winning idea and jump to the next thing far too early, far too soon.
Yeah. So you've been involved in many acquisitions. What due diligence you as being acquired you should do? Because a lot of times we talk about the due diligence being done from a buyer, but we don't talk a lot about the from a seller. What kind of due diligence the sellers should do?
Yeah, I mean, so when you're selling, so number one, if you're looking to bring your company to market, I'm a huge advocate that you should work with a professional, meaning you should not try to bring your company to market without professional representation. So the first due diligence that you need to do, the first layer or level of due diligence is who is going to represent you in the marketplace. So a mistake that I made before we sold our company is I had a business broker who came highly recommended to me. And I took that recommendation from someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for very, very seriously. And I did my diligence in the sense that I interviewed about 3 or 4 past clients of this business representative, this business broker, and asked about their experience. They all had great experiences. But what I didn't do is I made the mistake of not comparing him and his company as a service provider with half a dozen different alternatives. Well, long story short, that engagement did not end in a successful sale. So after our term ran out, the next time around, I actually went through the process of interviewing 12 different investment banks and took them through a very long and detailed hiring process in the same way that I would hire any other candidate for any other role in my business, and narrowed it down to our top 3, and then ultimately chose our top 1. And that investment bank did an excellent job in our process the second time around. So I would say the first thing that you want to be thinking about as a seller when it comes to doing diligence is doing diligence on the entity, whether it's an investment bank or a business broker, depending on the size of your business, that's going to represent you in the marketplace. Then when you're actually evaluating different buyers, whether it's a financial buyer or a strategic buyer, then you really want to spend a lot of time evaluating the companies that they have done transactions with and having candid conversations with those founders to know what the diligence process was like. Did they change the terms of the deal at the 11th hour, which is a typical move in private equity, especially? So understanding, do they play sort of what rules do they play by when they're making an acquisition or going through a transaction with a business? Really getting that candid experience with as many as you possibly can, not just the founders that the seller, the buyer will be putting you in touch with, because those are typically the all-stars, right? The ones that had the best experience. But what about the ones that had maybe a less ideal experience so that you can go into the conversations with your eyes wide open?
Yeah. These are amazing stuff. I mean, because that type of experience that you've gone through the second time and making sure that you're doing such a good work selecting that one that's going to represent you, it's incredibly amazing. That really it's beneficial for the whole time and money that's being spent for making that acquisition right for both parties. And because that's one of the reasons why acquisition don't really work well, because the due diligence is not done very well from both parties. And I truly agree with you. Now, Ryan, so you led teams, multiple teams through growth, exits, and even company scale. What's your approach to building a team that aligns with bold and often unconventional ideas?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you have to really recognize where your strengths are as a founder, and as early in your journey as possible to bring senior team around you that fills the gaps that you should not be filling. I believe that as founders, there are very few things that we can actually do at a world-class level that we can't find someone to replace us doing those jobs. Even if you're starting completely from scratch, you're bootstrapping your business, you're doing all the jobs, you want to be thinking about, how do I shed job after job after job so that way I'm not having to be in the machine? And so for me, the single most important hire that I made was really more of a partnership than a hire, and that's my business partner. And we ran our business and continue to run our business on the VI model, the visionary integrator model that's based on Gino Wickman's work in rocket fuel. And we work incredibly well together because we have almost no overlapping skills. It's very, very clear when a job needs to be done, who of us is going to be doing that job. So if you haven't studied the work of Gino Wickman, rocket fuel, the visionary integrator paradigm, traction, and that whole body of work, we ran our company very successfully on that entire operating system. So I would encourage anyone who's looking to scale to study that very, very closely.
Amazing.
The last thing that I'll say on this topic is that we built the model in such a way that I had no direct reports, that I orbited the system. The only direct report that I had technically was my business partner, but an incredibly self-sufficient, didn't need someone to report to be able to thrive in his role. And what that allowed me to do is it allowed me to insert myself strategically in whatever area of the business needed me at any one given time. Whether it was product development, whether it was marketing, whether it was strategy, whether it was recruitment for building and recruiting our team, whether it was representing our company as the public face at live events and speaking and so on and so forth. So by orbiting the system and not being kind of locked down with a team of direct reports and having a partner that managed the day-to-day operations of the business, it allowed us to really, really thrive and grow and scale in a way that I don't think would have been possible otherwise.
Amazing. So much great stuff you're sharing here, Ryan. I hope we have this next conversation, a longer format. So we're coming to an end with this short format bold talks. I have a lot more questions, but last question here is, what does the word bold mean to you?
The word bold to me means to take courageous action in a world where most people are afraid to give up good in order to go after great. It
Amazing.
requires bold action to pursue a life worth living with that at the center.
Amazing. Yeah. And you got to have that will, that courage, that boldness to step out for something that is like completely unknown. All the great things that happened to me is because I stepped out on the unknown. You know, that
Mm,
that that life experience that I went first to Hong Kong and lived in Hong Kong, the life experience that I moved to Singapore without knowing anybody, all the amazing things happened because of that unknown that felt so ridiculously crazy, stupid for so many people. But to me, it just felt it like in the spirit. I said, like, I got to do it. And here you go. I look back and said, this is amazing. I'm Levesque. Great seeing you, man. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Hopefully, another bold talks or somewhere, whatever you are, or in the world. Enjoy the summer. I wish you great success for this year and many years to come. Until that time, take care, be great, and be bold always. Take care.
take care.